An amazing panel, she says. We shall see. Fingers crossed. Thank you, everyone, for having us all here today on a fantastic topic. Logistics, probably everyone's favorite topic. We have a really wide variety of professionals here talking about logistics, and I think we're going to do a lot of Q&A amongst the panelists here, but also, hopefully, open it up to the floor for a lot of questions so the experts can have a go. So let's start with the main challenges of logistics with respect to automation. The questions are, is it technology, HR, process, other issues? And I'm just going to go down the line and start picking these questions off, because I think that's really the fundamental starting point of how do we make logistics better. So, Benedikt, let's start with you. What are the main challenges of introducing autonomy within the logistics modes?
Yeah, I mean, what we do like outdoor automation. So we are quite strong in like closed sites, private sites, factories, or on airports where we bring like goods from A to B. And what is the biggest challenge today, or one of the biggest challenges, is change management. Actually, how do we get people informed on site? How do we train people? How do we work like now with outdoor machines or robots? And how do we scale it in the end? People are used to use like robots in factories since like 30, 40 years, but like adding outdoor vehicles, how does it actually change? Do I need to adapt my infrastructure? Do I need to take like different safety measures? And the tricky part is always when you involve like external people on your private sites, bringing in like truck drivers which are coming from outside and are not used to this technology. So this is, I would say, like pretty tricky today to get into factories, into ports or airports, and like to bring in new technology which they are not used to it. Like, how do we change a bit like the approach there?
Fantastic. And Tracked Easy are trying to provide these services to a wide variety of companies, right?
Exactly. So today we are like fully implemented at BMW, Daimler Trucks, or John Deere, where we are like operating outdoor flows. Like this typical is like warehouse to assembly lane, or warehouse to warehouse, or now starting on airports is like this typical how to get like luggage or cargo from inside the terminal to the aircraft.
Great. Bachi, if I can ask you the same question, except you're the head of ops of DHL at MENA, right? So you're actually the customer. Are your issues slightly different from somebody who is actually trying to provide these services to a wide variety of companies? How does it differ for DHL?
So DHL, it's obviously, we're quite widespread. You've got last mile, first mile, you've got airport activity, you've got vehicles. It's the pace of change, the actual cost effectiveness of the product to your specific aspect. So quite easy, for example, you talk about robotics in a warehouse, probably very easy to implement. Autonomous mobility, last mile, a little bit more difficult, depends what aspect. Is it a courier, is it a vehicle? So it has to be in a limited, confined space as it is today. But yeah, it's to do with obviously the cost effectiveness. And then one aspect that Benedikt said, which is very, very valid, is the change management within a company to be able to embrace it. Because pace is quite quick, technology is moving at such a fast pace. What aspect, we're sort of catching up with robotic processes. Already we're talking about autonomous vehicles. We're talking about sort of big data. So which aspect is value add that you can effectively implement to your side of the business that is effective for your business, right? And that's the challenge, the biggest challenge actually we probably have.
Can I have a quick follow-up on that? As DHL, does it have to be cost-effective from day one, or are you guys willing to say, I know this is going to be more expensive and more disruptive, but I know it's the future, so I'm going to take a punt and have a go?
Absolutely. No, you'll see that does actually happen. Certainly a big, massive multinational like ourselves, we're 600,000 employees spread across the world, right? 220 odd countries and territories. So we absolutely do that. Different divisions. We have innovation centers set up around the world to embrace, to actually try out the different innovations in logistics across that will bring some value-added benefit. So even with, I take something simplistic, that sustainable aviation fuel, it's costly. We're implementing it. We're spending money on it. I know it's not to do with this particular subject, but absolutely, it's let's say with the electric vehicles, we will definitely embrace it. The problem is just scaling it to be cost-effective at some stage.
Fantastic. Bader, to you, the same question. The main challenges of implementing autonomy in, it's a bit of it's an interesting area that you work in, the Qatar free zone. Are there other aspects of autonomy that make it more challenging in that particular use case?
So for us, I think I would like to stick to challenges specific to Qatar. And one of the major challenges we have is the climate. It's a hot climate. And I think to overcome the climate situation, we need to provide intensive testing prior to full deployment of these technologies. So for example, we had Yutong. It's a Chinese manufacturing company for e-buses. So prior to the full deployment of their e-buses during the World Cup, they did some pilot testing to ensure that their batteries would survive the climate in Doha. And I think the second challenge that we have here is implementing safe implementation of these technologies in the country. So we have, for example, in the free zone, we have a testing track that's a 1.2 kilometer testing track, and it stimulates the real-world environment. So this can be used to test the technologies prior to rolling them out across the country.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Professor, I think given that you're from the Berlin University, my question more for you is on the technology side. When we think about autonomy and the challenges of implementing autonomy into all of these use cases, how do you view it? And is the technology ready for prime time now? What's the next step on the tech side?
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, we are talking about the autonomous driving, meaning of them to have a vehicle which has behaved like a human without driver. That means where the vehicle is able to perceive the environment like the human, and can predict, can plan, and control them. And for them, you need a software stack. Let's say AI-enabled software stack. In Germany, we are working on we established a huge initiative which calls German Center for Tangible AI and Digitalization, which is initiated from the government, where all of the major car makers are involved in. That means we are developing pre-competitive software and deploying in all of the platform where they can test them. I mean, we are testing with the MENA. We 2 weeks ago, we tested with one of the largest bus, 12-meter passenger bus in Berlin, in Germany. For them, we digitalized 22-kilometer road. We call them Real Labor. And where we are able to, I mean, if you are talking about the intelligent system, AI-enabled system, we need data to generate model, to train our system with the model. That's what we are doing in Germany, in Berlin. We are implementing 2 different types of the scenarios. One is 2 logistic scenarios. One is from store to from the hub to store. That means to shop. And the second is from the shop to the customer. And from the shop to customer, we are using delivery robots. We are testing them with them.
Like the little ones.
Exactly,
that go
little
along,
one. Exactly.
Pavements, right?
Exactly. It was from Continental, equipped with software. The second is it is from hub to shop. It's a MAN it is from Mercedes-Benz e-Sprinter, where we digitalize them, where the vehicle is able to drive fully autonomously. As you know, regarding the law, the driver has been there, but the driver has not, I mean, as far as possible, driver has not to interact with them.
So you're actually talking about a much more extensive value chain than perhaps the other people on the panel. Well, I think one of the key areas perhaps to discuss from a technical perspective is if your operational domain is quite limited to either a free zone or an industrial park or to an airport, that's a lot easier than saying delivery things to people's homes. So do you think that there's stages of the logistics value chain that are ready now and things that are going to come years from now?
I think it needs 2 or 3 years longer it takes.
Now, 2 or 3 years, that sounds like far enough away that we don't have to worry about it.
No, definitively not. No, we are right now testing. We are evaluating them. We have a trial in Berlin, a very complex environment where we are trying with a company called RWE. As you know, it is one of the largest retailer in Germany, and we have in Germany 2 largest retailer. One is RWE, the second is Schwarzgruppe. And we are testing with both of them. And as you know, we are using the public road. Therefore, it has to be 99% secure. And therefore, we are testing them. We are intensively testing them.
But you still have safety drivers in those vans?
Exactly.
Okay. So, okay. Fine.
But
we'll come back to that in a second, because I think that there's an element of the B2C that is way more difficult than some of the other areas we're talking about. So let me come back to that in a second. Bader, can we talk a little bit about the regulatory environment that you're dealing with, and is that materially easier to deal with than perhaps public environments?
So when it comes to the regulatory environment, we try to provide a regulatory framework that provides ease of business for our investors. So we have a one-stop shop regulatory framework. So what that means is that we reduce red taping and maximize efficiencies. Companies operating within our free zone don't have to deal with third-party stakeholders. For all their business needs, they deal directly with us. So that makes it easier to setting up their business and working and whatnot. Besides that, the license that we provide our companies can be utilized both onshore and offshore. And we also provide incentives. So there's no corporate tax for 20 years. There's no VAT tax. So we try to make it easier for companies, specifically startups, starting up in the business in the AV and AV to develop their technologies, and then they can use our facilities, like our testing track, to test their technological solutions and whatnot.
So you're talking about the regulations within the free zone as opposed to the regulations specific to the automated vehicles. Is that correct?
Correct. So, but these regulations play a role for them, you know. So
for sure.
It makes it easier for them to test their technological solutions in the free zones prior to rollout in the country or abroad.
And so does that mean the regulatory environment for the people that are testing that is quite light touch relative to public roads?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Fantastic. And both for Bachi and Benedikt, you're operating in reasonably limited domains. So do regulations have an impact on what you do, or is it more to do with things like the safety issues, like ASIL ratings or CE markings or those kinds of things? So Benedikt, you first.
I mean, in Europe, we need like the CE marking. So our product is like CE marked. And we are linking, let's say, our developments to machinery norms. So like ASIL standards, as you just mentioned. So we are...
Sorry, the CE marking is it on the software or is it the hardware?
It's actually both.
And so that's separate?
It's completely separate, but it's seen then as one CE mark product. And I mean, we are in a defined space, as you said, like on an airport or in a factory. So to be allowed to operate in these environments, usually we need like first an insurance coverage. And then it really depends also on, let's say, the customer or partner. What are their like safety measurements and requirements to operate? But you can always like limit it with speed, with I don't know, road width, or different measures, or even taking out. I mean, talking about docking maneuvers, going backwards. Which sensors do you have, or you don't have sensors, but maybe you drive only with a certain amount of speed and maybe with like acoustic signals. So it really depends a bit like how you define the safety measures on a private side.
And so is that one of the key challenges in going into different use cases, is that you have to redo all of these requirements, or is there a
I think we now
template?
Achieved like this certain level of standard, and we are able like to really propose like a product and to which is getting picked up by customers. So they really, especially like customers with a high appetite for automation, they really understand exactly what it means, like a CE marking, our approach, like how we analyze a site, and how we put like a vehicle then into operation. So the tricky part is really if we go on a site, and this is especially on airports, for example, where there's not that much automation today than compared to maybe like a big industrial player in a warehouse or in a factory. So this change management I mentioned at the beginning, this is like the trickier part, to impose new technology there.
Thank you for that. Bachi, same question. Like you have, I guess, a more limited operational domain. And are they different between your sites, or can you impose your own requirements on each of them?
From a regulatory perspective, limited because it's in a confined space. And safety was paramount in everything that we do. It's probably the number one aspect. So yes, it's confined. Yes, it's got to be safety driven first and foremost. Warehouse, but like Benedikt said, we trialing on airport perimeters, because you've got a yard or a warehouse yard or an airport perimeter accordingly. Or obviously, whether it's and forklift movements, autonomous forklifts, remote management of forklifts, that sort of thing. But it's got to be safe first and foremost, and secondly, it's pretty much limited, and therefore the regulatory side doesn't really predominantly apply, if I can put it that way, because you're not going out into the public. We've got some bots actually that are actually autonomous that have been trialled out on the streets. Actually, funny enough, in Frankfurt and Berlin, in Germany, where you have the postal delivery man, when they've got a bot that follows him. That's not regulated as such, because it's just it is autonomous, but it just follows an actual physical courier. But it's not predominantly, as it stands today, the regulatory side that drives that. Whereas, like for example, drones are starting to be regulated quite severely, quite strict in terms of the impositions on those, to be honest with you. So yeah, those are the two main characteristics.
Thanks. You hit on safety, and it's something I do want to talk about a little bit. And here's a statistic and a thought experiment for everybody. And this is more on the autonomous vehicle front. There's around 40 to 45,000 people killed every year in the United States in road vehicle accidents. So the thought experiment is, if you could make every vehicle autonomous and you only killed 20,000 people, is that acceptable or not? I'm not looking for answers, and I'm not going to provide one. But so the question for the panelists here is, in a more limited environment, when you're talking about safety within a construct of an airport or a warehouse or a free zone or whatever it is the same kind of issue at play here, where the workers are looking for zero tolerance in these automated vehicles? Or is just an improvement statistically good enough? Let's start at the end, and we'll come back. Professor Sahin.
Exactly.
Microphone, please.
The issue what you touched is very important. As you know, 97% of all of the accidents which has happened cause through the human. The meaning, we are talking about 3% of them of accidents. I think if we be able to reduce them 3% to 1%, we will be on the safe side. That means we will be save 98% of human life. For us, our challenges, our mission is to work a solution which allowed us to reduce, I think, 2% in compare of 98% is acceptable for the society. But our vision, our goal is to reduce the number of the accidents.
I think it's a reasonable answer. If you're the one person, though, that gets killed by the robotaxi, I think you might have a different view. But I totally understand your view.
You know, I mean, let me enhance them. That the accident can be not happen. It's not caused through the software. Perhaps it's a technological issue. As you know, the future vehicle, what we are talking about autonomous vehicles for the different purposes, for the human transport, passenger transportation, or for logistic. We are talking about very complex systems. In case of the systems, I mean, I'm talking not about the software, but I'm talking about the hardware. It's one of the elements of the hardware caused, and which lead to the accident. And from my point of view, it will be unavoidable, but
hopefully avoidable. Yes,
yeah.
Agreed. Bader, I don't know if you want to take this question or not, but if you want to talk a little bit about safety is how this works, that would be great.
I think the goal would be 0 accidents, but is that realistic? No, it's not realistic. So, of course, we'd aim to reduce accidents as much as possible and put as much safety precautions and whatnot to ensure that these accidents don't happen. But is 0 achievable? I hope so. But if we can reduce it, that's good enough.
Thank you. Bachi?
So when you talk about safety, I think so. The goal is 0. I agree with Bader there. Absolutely, that's your end goal. Is it achievable or not? It depends. I mean, automation versus human or manual, if I can put it that way, is always a challenge. You know, one catastrophic autonomous failure potentially, you know, can have devastating consequences. But if you can reduce fatalities, injuries, obviously that's what you strive for, right? And I think we're sort of on a exponential journey, I think, here, whereby that's exactly what we're trying to do with a combination of regulatory, a combination of manual processes that are improved, autonomy, data, or obviously with autonomous vehicles and robots. But that's not foolproof either. That's all I'm saying. That's the only point I would say. So you can't do a general fast rule. It's a combination of all of those, because you can, even a robot can have a failure. The regulatory aspects can be ignored or not implemented. Equally, a rogue individual can do his own thing as well, right? To be fair, so the end goal is acceptable, but I think it's a journey amongst all of those parameters. You can always have a rogue company who don't do a lot of things. You find that there's aspects there that are not implemented that have a consequential impact on safety as well, despite regulatory side being implemented.
Thank you. I'm going to switch tacks here a little bit and talk about the benefits of automation. You did mention data, which I want to come back to, but a lot of people think about just pure cost of taking labor out of the equation, but there's an efficiency, a safety, a data benefit, security, or sustainability also are parts of automation. So I was wondering if I can, along those axes, especially for companies like yours, Benedikt, where you're probably looking at quite a variety of implementations. What is the driving factor for automation from your perspective and also more broadly?
Maybe I can give one example. So we are working together with one customer in the US, and he's really struggling. So it's a heavy machinery building company, and they are really struggling to hire people for peak times. So meaning usually they run 6 months on a one-shift operation, and then they run 3 3 months on a 3-shift operation, even extra time on weekends, etc., because they have their order books full. So they are like really looking for solutions which are easily to implement, to scale, and also to downsize. So it makes it difficult today with like an expensive technology to hit the business case of a 1 shift and then maybe a 3 shift, etc. But so here it's really the flexibility of automated technology. Safety is another big driver. As mentioned already, we are currently taking out a lot of forklifts. So everyone wants to ban forklift trips on their factories, which are going from A to B. I mean, a lot of damages, accidents, etc. are happening. So I would say these are the 2 main ones. And I mean, cost for sure. Everyone needs to be competitive. I mean, it's a global, let's say, fight of production, and so yeah, every company is like trying to optimize here and to be competitive. Especially when I look at Europe with like high labor costs, etc. If you want to be competitive, it's maybe your only possibility as well to try to automate them.
Thank you. Same question. What are the key value drivers of automation in your view?
So obviously, I think you mentioned safety one, efficiency, productivity, quite clearly. You bring down the unit cost eventually. I think that's quite clear. I think that's fundamental. But I think with us, in general, you have you can recreate capacity, actually. That's probably one of the things. So now the byproduct of that is that maybe you defer recruitment or you decide you want to downsize. But I think and that's not probably our aim, but it was that maybe recreating capacity allows you to be more efficient in some other part of your business as well, right, to be fair. So the robotics or automation is certainly, very, very efficient, very productive, and certainly is able to lower your unit cost eventually.
Thank you. Peter, your unit costs in Qatar would be lower already than, say, Germany or some of the other European countries. Is there anything you can add in terms of what it is that you really focus on to make automation beneficial?
So I think my colleagues already covered most of the important points, but definitely safety is very important. And efficiencies for factories and manufacturing. So when you have autonomous vehicles or robotics, you can run the factory 24/7, no issue. So I think that's a big benefit, and you save cost and manpower when you do that.
And a follow-up, you mentioned earlier about the environment here in the summer, obviously very hot, very difficult to work in. Does this allow you to perhaps protect workers in some of the more extreme conditions and provide the ability for things to operate when it's probably too hot for people to work?
100%, especially during summer times here, we have actually a few hours that you're not allowed to have labor workers outside and working. So this is between usually 12 and 4 p.m. during the peak summer heat. So definitely, for sure, using autonomous vehicles and robotics during this time will definitely continue production and increase efficiency.
That's interesting. It's the same problem that your American friends have, a different cause, right? So either you can't get the labor or there's high labor churn, or you're not allowed to use the labor in a particular part of the time. And so what this allows you to do is make an efficient model that's operatable as needed, as opposed to when it's dictated to. Fantastic. And Professor Sahin, you're using autonomy across a wide range of the value chain. There's probably each of these aspects that your customers and your pilot plants are trying to figure out, whether it's efficiency or cost or whatever. What drives them on, especially if you actually, so I'm an ex-food retail analyst for Credit Suisse. I left before they disappeared. But I looked at Aldi and Lidl very closely, and they are hyper efficient in logistics, right? So to me, when they're looking at autonomy or autonomous vehicles, it's all about squeezing out those costs and making it hyper efficient. Is that been your experience?
I mean, what we are following in Germany with our trials, with our our main goal is to reduce emission. That means CO2 footprint, to reduce the CO2 footprint, to increase the safetiness, and to increase product availability in the store. And another thing, what we are following in with our trials in Berlin, we are trying to avoid never out of stock and avoid the food waste. As you know, it is another issue, another headache where we have in the world. One hand, we have countries where we have a lot of food. The other hand, we have the countries that have enough food. That means the question is how we can avoid them. And with autonomous logistic scenarios solution, we are trying to avoid them. Another thing, what is important for us, we are in Germany. We are interested in to increase the quality of life in our cities. The meaning of them to have a city where we can live them, healthy live them. Meaning of them is to have a city where we can reduce the noise, where we can increase the air quality, CO2. On all of them scenarios we are trying cover through our trials in Germany, and in both trials, as I mentioned, we have two different trials, what we are implementing with all of our stakeholders. One it is, let's say, passenger transportation, where we are testing them with the different vehicles. And second, it is logistic. And that is that we are following in Germany. We are trying to build a metrics, try to collect data, try to improve, and try to prove that our approach is working. That is what Germany is interested in.
You mentioned the CO2, which is interesting because this whole idea of electrification versus
energy efficiency,
autonomy, right? So I think electrification is a necessary part of making autonomous systems, but autonomous systems aren't necessarily a straight benefit. If it can become more efficient, that's probably where we can get some benefits from the sustainability.
Exactly.
I think we've got about 8 minutes left, and I could keep rambling on here, but there's quite a lot of people in the audience, which is great to see. So if there's any questions, now is probably a good time to have a go, and if there aren't, then I will keep going. Any questions from the audience? Even the ones I planted earlier. All right, we're going to keep going. Okay. The impediments to introducing autonomy into logistics. To me, that there's companies that are doing this and have to reach out to users, but the bigger group, the people that make all the money here, the integrators and consultants, the large management consultants, they're going to get into this. Where do they have a role here? Have any of you had any experience with this other tier, which can effectively scale this, or are we still in the very early stages? Start with Benedikt.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, today I'm sure we are in touch with all kind of consultants, etc., and trying to find channels to scale. That's what is the mission of Tracked Easy. I mean, that's what we are trying to do, finding first focus, really focusing only on use cases we are really able to do, and then trying to identify also customers which are willing or have the possibilities to scale. I mean, does it make sense to go to a factory where you're able to implement one robot? I mean, you can in a country you have never been before, maybe. This is tricky, just building up the whole support structure. I mean, especially with these complex systems, you have a higher maintenance, or you have higher maintenance activities as if you have a manual-driven tractor, for example. So yes, we are working with them, but I mean, today, I believe we have the biggest know-how because we developed the hardware, we developed the software, we know exactly what we are capable of. Is this a channel maybe in the next years when it's more used and more applied in the world? Then maybe yes. Today it's like really it's hard work identifying the right partner, the right use cases, a lot of education. It's very time consuming to build up a project today. So unfortunately not plug and play, but that's where we want to be in the next years. But today it's a lot of education.
You want them to be able to order a vehicle with autonomy and have it plug into their ERP or warehouse management system and have it just work, right? And we're just...
today we kind of work always as a standalone solution. I mean, I believe really in the next years there will be more, I don't know if you heard about this VDA 5050, which is like a standard to be integrated into all kind of fleet management systems, so that a factory is like able to orchestrate like 20 different vendors of robots and vehicles in the future, not like only today to have like 15 fleet management systems or in parallel, which doesn't make any sense. So so today we are trying to be there and to solve some problems, but in the future, plug and play would be the dream.
Bachi, are the consultants all over you these days?
Yeah, you got not just the consultants, but even some of the technology companies themselves, right? So it's like they're casting a wide net trying to catch fish. I'm not sure which comes first, the chicken or the egg here. So sometimes they're just not relevant, or they're not relevant to your business, and they're trying to match something that isn't quite what you need. So I think for technology or companies, or even certainly with consultants, the aspect is, what is the relevance of your product to that industry or to that product, if necessary, right? To be fair. So yes, of course they're all over you. They're trying to mold sometimes what is that product and what it can do for you, and sometimes it just isn't for you at that stage. It may be further down the line. It just doesn't happen to be at that moment in time, or there's no use for that product right at that moment in time. So yes, we're being contacted all the time. Not the relevance isn't always there, and they want us to adapt or adopt our processes to some modern technology that really just isn't quite user ready for acceptance.
Fantastic. We're running out of time. Any additional thoughts, either Professor Sahin or Bader, on this topic?
I think one of the facts what we have to face is the reality in the future. The reality in the future vehicle platform future vehicle will consist of more than 100 components. The current vehicles consist with more than 2,000 components. The question, what will happen with our industry, with all of our supplier? That means we need company, consultancy, or we can guide them how they can digitalize, how they can equip their product with AI and make it valuable, which can be integrated in the future vehicle platform. I think that is huge transformation what we are facing in Germany. What's the challenge what we are facing, what we now, will be huge headache for us, and we have to solve them. For that, we need a consultancy, we need a consulting company who can consult them.
Fantastic. I'll leave everyone with a quote. I remember this from a few years ago. I'm not going to get it wrong, but in the factory or the industrial park of the future, there'll be just two people alive. There'll be a dog and a man, and the man will be there to feed the dog, and the dog will be there to stop the man from touching any of the equipment. So that's what we're heading towards in the future. So thank you very much, and we'll see you later.